And what I'm also going to do is volume down, and then we're going to do vowel up, and then instead I'm going to do -5, and then I'm going to do modify channel 3, music vowel 50. Let's save that. Should be fine. Music vowel. Yep. Looks good to me. So let's test that. Display sound. Volume up. Volume down. As you can see, it's adjusting the sound, but sometimes it's not quite as easily noticed, but as you can see, it does work. So that's how you can use the music channels and different ones to modify the channel and the pan and music volume, as you can see. So yeah, so that was a little bit of a tutorial on sound. Now what I'm also going to do is a passage to JSON. Passage to JSON. Go to passage 7. So I'm going to save that, refresh, and add passage. This is going to be JSON, and in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some simple JSON. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Notepad++. And the reason why is because I want to use Notepad++ to firstly create the JSON in first. And I'm just going to do some simple JSON. It's not going to be anything too complex. So I'll open this. Obviously, not that complex. As you can see here, I've got ID 0, name spider, health 30. Now we did have that in a previous JSON value, but I'm going to be using the same one for something different. So what I'm going to do is attack 4. And I'm gonna do another one, and this time this is going to be Spider Queen. I'm gonna put health, let's say 75, attack 7. Let's put it at 7. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back into StoryDev, and in here what I'm going to do is process, rich text. I'm going to process and copy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much replace this. And I'm going to get rid of these white spaces, which I really should fix actually. Didn't really need it. What am I doing? I don't technically need to do this. I mean, it just looks a bit cleaner if we were to do it, but for the purposes of keeping things clean, I'm just going to do it for the time being. Put that there, and there. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and I'm going to use this and this function to get the enemy name and enemy health, and I'm going to put it somewhere else. I'm not going to use this combat thing because I'm not going to be using it. What I'm also going to do actually is I'm going to do a different object, and this is going to be player information. So what I'm going to do in here is attack 5, let's say. Let's put level 1 to start with. And in here, let's put health. Oops, health 80. I do not want to save that. Okay, so let's copy. I'm going to go back in here, process rich text, process and copy, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter here, and I'm going to do player info is equal to parse JSON, and in here I'm going to paste that information. Okay. Now, what do I want to do with that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do function get player info, and in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some more variables. So I'm going to do player attack is equal to 0, player level is equal to 1, because that's going to be the default, player health is equal to 0, again that's going to be a default. Okay, and what I'm going to do in here is player level is equal to player info dot level. What this is going to do is it's going to access the level in here. Now I'm not going to teach you how JSON works, because I'm going to assume that as a programmer I'm sure you know what JSON is and how it's structured. Basically anything opening and closing with a curly bracket is defined as an object, a JSON object. So basically I don't need to do this loop, for example, which is what we're doing with the enemies, because when we use the open and close square bracket, that is defined as an array, and within that array are many objects, as you can see. So on the next, I'm going to do that player info dot health, and then player attack is equal to player info dot attack. Let's save that. What I'm then going to do is over here, well, I don't want to do that. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to call this advanced combat. So yeah, we're going to do some advanced combat. We're going to do get player info. Then what I'm also going to do is get enemy. And I'm going to do a rand, and in here what I'm going to do is 0, 1. So we're basically going to get a random number between 0 and 1, and it's either going to be the spider or the spider queen. What I'm then going to do is append show, and in here what I'm going to do is enemy health, and I'm going to get the enemy health. As you could, let me save that. So if we go back here, we've got enemy health here, which is defined. Then we've got get enemy here, and we've also got get player info. We need to make sure that this is actually correct. So I'm just going to copy, paste to make sure it is correct. Yeah, it certainly looks that way. Okay. On the next line, what I'm going to do is append show again. And then I'm going to do enemy name. I'm going to use that for new line. And then here what I'm going to do is enemy name. Then I'm going to append show. Append show. I'm going to do a double new line to separate the enemy information from the player information. And then here what I'm going to do is player health. And I'm going to do plus player health Oops. And then in here, what I'm going to do is append link. I'm going to use new line plus, and in here what I'm going to do is attack, and in the action of attack what we're going to do is we're going to get a random number between the player's attack and what its maximum potential is going to be. So what I'm going to do is another speech mark or quote, whatever you want to call it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do enemy health minus equals rand, and in here what I'm going to do is player attack and then player attack times 1.5. In the next one, what I'm going to do is at the same time we're going to minimize the player health as well. So we're going to do player health rand, and this time what we're going to do is enemy attack and then enemy attack times 1.5. Then what we're going to do is refresh the passage using the go to passage function, and we're going to put 7 in there, and I believe that's pretty much done at that point. Okay, I do not believe I actually initialized the enemy attack, so I'm going to go back here. No, I didn't. So I want to do that. Enemy attack is equal to 0. And over here what I'm going to do is enemy attack is equal to I dot attack. So need to be a bit careful with that. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Let's refresh this, advanced combat. So we're going to test again. So it could be Spider Queen, or it could be the normal spider. Okay, so it's a Spider Queen. Oh. Okay, so we've got a bit of a difficulty here. So you remember when we used that new line? Yeah. Doesn't look like that's going to work, so I'm just going to remove that. And this time, instead, what I'm going to do is append show. And in here, I'm just going to do n. Save that. Okay, let's test this instead. This should now work. 2 sounds, passage to JSON. Okay, so again, we're against this Spider Queen. Our health is 80, so I'm going to attack at O. Oh yeah, of course. Because every time we go to passage, it's going to get this. That's what, and we don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is set up a new variable, and I'm going to do is. So, okay. Firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to put combat initiate, and I'm going to put that to false for the time being. I'm going to save that. When I go to this one here, what I'm going to do is when I sounds even. So in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to do combat initiate is equal to true, so that when we go to passage actually, let's not put it here. Let's put it somewhere else. Let's put it in here. So what I'm going to do is, if combat initiate, if not combat initiate, I'm going to open there and close here. And what I'm going to do in here is combat initiate is equal to true. So that should be the same combat initiate. Let's go back here, combat initiate. So that should be the same value each time. Just to make sure I've just copied and pasted. And now let's test game. Let's see if it actually works this time. It should. Okay. Okay, so we've got it here. As you can see, we are still taking damage even though the spider is pretty much dead because it's now lower than 0. So let's determine that, shall we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to do if enemy health is less than or equal to 0. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to encapsulate that around brackets, and I'm going to put an exclamation mark before it. And what this is going to do is it's going to determine whether or not enemy health is less than or equal to 0. Whether it's not less than or equal to 0, rather. And in here, what I'm going to do, I am going to do that. Else, we are going to combat initiate is equal to false, and instead what we're going to do is we're going to do get player info again, and then we're going to get combat and then get combat initiated. We're going to go to passage. Oops. In fact, that's what we can pretty much do anyway, so we're just going to go to passage 7. So basically, when we initiate it to false again, it's going to go through this. It's going to initiate this, establish this, so it's going to return this player health to 50, and we're going to get a new enemy, whether that's the spider or the spider queen. So let's save that. Then we're going to do test game. 2 sounds, passes JSON. Okay, so we're against the spider. Let's do that. Let's attack it. Okay, looks like it's working. Okay, now we're against the spider queen, and the spider queen is utterly destroying us, which is not good. And we can still, of course, kill it somehow. So again, we need to fix that. So what I'm going to do is else if player health is equal to, is less than or equal to 0, rather. And then here what I'm going to do is go to passage 8, and I'm going to create a new passage. And in here what I'm going to do is get rid of this. I'm going to make this defeated by spiders. And in here what I'm going to do is, unfortunately, you were unable to defeat the onslaught of spiders. Okay, so I'm gonna save this and we're gonna test it. Okay, so we're gonna get two sounds, passage JSON, we're going to attack the spider. Okay, now we're going to try and defeat the spider queen. And as you can see, the spider queen is a bit too tough for us. And it's not going to that passage for some reason, which is really odd, actually. Actually, now that I think about it, we should put this before this. So what I'm going to do is if there, and then else if here. Excuse me. So I'm going to save that, test game. So when we eventually get to the spider queen, we will most likely get defeated. And then we'll get taken to this. Unfortunately, you are unable to defeat the onslaught of spiders. So that was a touch on how to use JSON, and what I'm going to do is hopefully end the tutorial series, because this is pretty much everything that we've pretty much covered. I've covered everything. You can use JSON now, you can use sounds, we've gone over some basic JSON. We can use different functions and reuse those functions elsewhere in the application. We've initialized variables and other such things. One more thing before I end this tutorial series, however, is we can use enemies string, and instead we could put this data in here. Now, you wouldn't probably use it with enemies. What you probably want to do it with is, in fact, the player info, because strings and numbers are saved by the save function in the options menu. I'm just going to put player info string there. Then we're going to do player info string in there. So if we wanted to save that player info, what we would do is we would do so let's have a look. If we do function save player info, and in here what you would do is stringify JSON, and in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put player info. Now what I would do is player info dot, and what I would do is attack is equal to player attack. Then I would do player info dot level is equal to player level, and then player info dot health is equal to player health. And in stringify JSON, what I'm going to do is player info, and that will basically make all the info in here in this JSON object, and it's going to make it into a string, but it's not returning it to anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it over here. So basically what that's going to do is it's going to stringify the JSON object, which is this. It's going to make it into a string, and then it's going to put it into here, and that will save along with everything else. So what I'm going to do is in advanced combat, I'm going to save player, and then I'm going to do save player info. I'm going to save that. If if I go back over here, make sure that the function is actually correct. So it certainly does look that way, doesn't it? So if we go back here, just paste that. Yeah, that seems fine. Okay. So yeah, we're going to save this, and what I'm then going to do, I'll just put that there for the time being. What I'm then going to do is in here, if we are successful, what I'm going to do is player level facts. If I save that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new function player level, and I'm going to put a value parameter in there, so we're basically increasing the level of the player when we do that. And if I do player level plus equals val and what I'm then going to do is player health is equal to plus equals to even, and then here what I'm going to do is val times 20. So if we put, let's say, 2 there or 1 there, so basically what we're doing is we're increasing the player level by 1. We're going to multiply that 1 by 20, so we're going to increase the health of the maximum health of the player by 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, I'm going to do player level 1. So we defeated an enemy, and we're going to go back to this passage. I'm going to save this as test, shall we? So it should work. Attack. Oh, we're against the spider queen, so this won't work. Let's try it again, shall we? Okay, we're against the spider. We're against the spider again, but the player health is not increasing, and I am entirely not sure why. Let's figure this out, shall we? Player health plus equals. Oh, because we're getting the player info again, which means that we're not actually getting it at all anymore. So what we probably want to do is instead use player info dot health instead, and then we'll do the same here as well, player info dot level. Don't know why I just did that. So we're gonna I'll save that and see if it works this time. It should. Passages to JSON. Oh, stop giving me the spider queen, god damn it. 2 sounds, passages to JSON. Okay, we've got the spider this time. Gonna defeat that. Okay, so we leveled up. We've now got 100 health. Okay, so now we've got 120 health. So as you can see, we're leveling up, and we might be able to defeat the spider queen. Okay, we were lucky. Okay. So as you can see, there's a basic leveling system every time you defeat a spider. Whatever. Okay, so as I said, that's a bit more on JSON and a bit more advanced JSON, and I'm sure you can do a lot more to it than what I can do. Well, I'm sure I can do better than that, but we'll see. We'll see. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next time.